Okay, trying something different. Hoping it's gonna work. There we go. Let me see if I can bring him on. There we go. Invitation. Let's see. Hi, Ndipiwe. It's been a long time, eh, buddy? How are you doing? This face is big. Okay. Let's see how one is going to work. Again, let's see. Let's see. Technology, ne? Let's see. I'm trying to do something. Let's see if he's going to be able to come on the video. Let's wait. Let's see. Yeah, I'm doing well, man. Hoping you too. Yeah, it's been forever. But I think at times we just come across each other on these streets. I see we had two. Bafo. Unjan. There we go. He is here. There we go. Bring them on camera. Ta-da!
Yay! Finally.
Guess what's the first thing I saw when you came on?
What's the first thing you saw?
You're well taken care.
Oh, thank you. Thanks to my Saudi products, it's looking better and better each day.
Yeah. Yeah, I can.
It's a bit of a challenge figuring it out, but we're here now.
Yeah. So
is the sound hearing me fine?
Yes, it is.
Awesome.
Yeah. Now it's even much clearer. So
Great.
in terms of we kind of doing like a black break.
There we go. I was just sharing so that people on my timeline can also have the link to the. Sorry, I missed what you were saying.
No, I was saying that you and I are doing kind of like a black and gray beard.
Yeah, no, I must say you are outperforming on the gray. Mine is there's times where it's doing a bit of brown, and then there's days where it's like proper black. So yeah, I think I'm still trying to figure out my color. But yours is getting 10 out of 10.
Have you seen BB Wine?
Come again?
Have you seen BB Winans beard?
No, I haven't.
His is quite nice and long. Long. His is quite nice and long. Yeah, connected as well. It looks.
Sure. No. But you must be careful, man. Some of them are implants. They're not the real McCoy. Just like the ladies can put in a weave, the gents can put on a beard now.
That's something I am doing.
Come again?
No, I'm saying that's not something I intend to do.
Nah, keep it real. Let the natural look dominate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'd like us to probably kick off. Well, tonight's topic is expectation, but I'm here a feed. I'm not sure. A feedback. Okay. So, talking about expectation, but before we get to expectation, let's to last week's conversations, the one about triggers and behavior, and just reflect on that of the what were your thoughts throughout the week? Has it changed the way you think or the way you perceive it?
So yeah, last week's conversation I think was definitely one worth to go back to and maybe unpack some things, revisit some things. But I think for me, if there was any key takeaway from last week's conversation, was although we were talking a lot in analogies, but I think it drove the point home. And it was understanding what's in your control versus what's control. Not being able to control how someone else can act towards you, not being able to control how you may feel about something, and understanding that your response behavior is the thing that's in your control, and really learning to focus your attention on that. Takeaway was, as human beings, we act out of familiarity. So
Yeah.
our behaviors and what we perceive to be the way to do things is all born out of what we're familiar with. So if you grow up in a household where when you're upset about something or you're hurt about something, it is to shout, to express that, you can only work with that. And really in how we deal and heal, or get better, it is to, whilst that familiarity may have been taking a right turn, it is then to, be brave enough to try the left turn, which is unfamiliar. It's not what you were used to seeing, but try it and then see, how that moves us forward. So perhaps rather than shout when you want to express how you feel, it is then to pause and actually say how you feel, and perhaps, explain, to the other person. So that for me, I think were the key takeaways. I think it was quite a good question also we got from the audience for us to share on, things that triggers or behaviors that we had to deal with. I think that was really good. And I think when we bring that personal touch to things, it is really, I think, one of the best ways for us to connect with the people that are joining in on the live, both the ones that join in on the live and even the ones that watch it afterwards. And I think it makes it real, it keeps it authentic, and I think in our conversations, that's what we want this to be. It must be a safe space for gents to come and talk, share their thoughts, learn from each other, but most importantly, it needs to be authentic. So I think for me, that was last week's conversation. Very, very good conversation. And if you missed it, please go back and check it out when we had Dr. Hanan join us.
Yeah.
How about you?
I think that the interesting thing for me, especially when you're making reference to the question that came up, silence after the question, and in between still pauses and silence, almost like it was hard for it to just come out really. Things that about pose a question and it will come up in, and I think this is meant in to share about our own personal experiences, to share our feelings. And I was watching the video again a couple of days ago, if not yesterday, and I could feel, that almost hesitation between our and I don't know, speaks to how we've been that we everything and anything, but now when certain personal it becomes a
I think it's also a right turn versus left turn. We're so used to, I mean, I think last week conversation, not there was anything bad about it, but even how much we used analogies or to sort of drive the point home or to express is also I think a very right turn behavior of gent generally of men. We are broad about things. Our first approach to expressing ourselves is not to go to that place, it's not to go to the sensitive place to express our heart. We'd rather express our mind. We have very ease with that, and it's very comfortable to sort of bring that to the fore. So I think it really is that for me in reflecting on it, that was the thing that played out. I was like, okay, I think we are talking about, how as men we need to make opening up and talking about how we feel, more comfortable. And we realize that we're not always in settings where we trust or are comfortable to open up.
Yeah.
And thus, in the previous episodes, we had touched on, the different avenues you can use to go and express yourself, to be able to talk to someone you can trust. We have, spoken about professionals that are there for the same. And one of the reasons we actually brought on a professional in last week's conversation was perhaps to then give a very practical, see just how comfortable and, a genuine conversation it can be, to go for professional help. But certainly none of these things that, seems to be like prohibitors can hold us back as men to actually be able to talk and open up so we can deal the mental health and we can deal the emotional health. Because I read a very sad statistic in the week around suicide deaths. We had, I think, in 2018, just speak on the correction, there were over 6,000 of them, and over 5,100 of them were men. And this for me is one of the reasons why I'm doing this. One of the reasons why, even in my circles, I push us to talk. I push us to engage in how we feel about things. Our mental well-being. And it's unfamiliar, right? It's left turn stuff. We're used to the right
Yeah.
turn that we speak about sports. We speak about what's happening in the economy. We talk politics. They're very common things that as men you can put us in a room and we'll just get talking, right? But there's areas that we don't go enough to, right? And sometimes we don't go to at all. And I think last week's conversation, when I just look at it overall, was also a reflection of that we need to practice and become familiar, take the left turn to, being vulnerable, to, being able to bring our heart to conversations. And I understand, men need to feel like it's safe to do so. And I think that's perhaps a good starting point.
Yeah. I think the other thing that I just want to reflect on, the analogy of bungee jumping. When kind of on and about when you okay, we talked about that you can't behavior, emotion, you can control your emotions, but you can control how you respond. Hence, the analogy of bungee. You took the second up until the third time that you go, you have to change your, not necessarily be able to change or control, but you can change your, and I think it speaks broadly to that we take for granted. I can control my emotions, and there's one thing that I've learned, that when you and kind of keep it in. So let's think about challenge. Maybe I'm feeling like there's a pain in my groin area, and I don't know what's going on. I don't go out and because I don't know what the outcome would be. I'm afraid to my wife. I don't know what will respond. And so I keep it in. And the more it becomes a worrisome to me, it continues. It continues. I keep it bigger, it then becomes me. And over time, becomes something that is creative, initially affect my sex life, and now so long, something that I think then filter that worry into how I perform. And now suddenly I'm not to my wife with and to think there's probably else going out and one thing to another up. Whereas from if you know what I'm feeling this, I don't know on how to figure and we talk it out. Yes, I can admit that not just eat. If we do, imagine any issues that we are struggling with, but we keep it and because we for so long, know how to express them. And sometimes this is what I'm struggling with. She could say, but why have you kept so long to tell me? And that on its own is a challenge that you bring this change, but that there are other things that you now need to explain as to okay, understand. Bungee jumping analogy for me kind of hit that the trick. Just use it, control the focus on controlling the emotion, but focus on controlling the behavior.
Your sound keeps on breaking in some pieces. I don't know if it's just me, but certainly, and I think we may be disadvantaging those that weren't tuned in for last week's conversation. But just to maybe give context to what Zibusa was sharing about is that Dr. Hanan was on the show, had shared that, triggers and behaviors is almost like going bungee jumping. Your first jump is terrifying and you get the pressure and eventually go through with it. And going back up for the second jump probably is even more worse and more harder of a sort of, fear to get over than your first one. And then your third one. But as you repeat that, right, you eventually get to a point where you're comfortable with it. So repeating that behavior eventually gets to a point where there isn't that fear. There isn't the fear of the unknown or, what if the rope snaps this time? There's more ease in what you do. And I'm sort of using this analogy to then explain what happens when we're acting out of familiarity and we realize that, hey, this approach or someone reflects to us that this approach is not the way to go. And so you have now to learn a new familiarity to that. And really the win is in repeating the new behavior that you need to show up on. And part of that conversation, I touched on a man in a relationship, and I use with a woman in this instance. And, there's an argument and the conversation leads to a point where he lifts his hand and strikes her. And it was about, we're trying to understand what gets there. So what was the familiarity for him when it comes to, when he's upset about something, that drives him to that point? Is it what he saw growing up, etc.? Is it what was displayed to him? Be it his parents or in the household he was in, or even sometimes someone he admired growing up, where that was how they then resolved a conflict or an argument. And it was like, how do you unlearn that behavior and learn the new behavior, right? And in that particular example, the new behavior is saying to you, pause, right? When you clearly not getting each other or you're upset, and tell the other person, I'm upset, or this thing that you're saying is hurting my feelings, or this thing that you are doing, it makes me feel this way. And then it's for the other person to then take that opportunity of you being vulnerable and understand, and then obviously change their behavior and try to show up differently. And so that was just a bit of context on that. Do you want to move on to the expectations conversation?
Just before that, just the other parts, perhaps, especially of turning left when you're always used to turning right. Expand
Yeah.
on that one.
Oh, yeah. So one of the things that he had said was that as humans, our conditioning is that we behave out of what is familiar to us versus what is unfamiliar. So a typical example, if I can stay with the same example, is that, you know, if someone says something to you that hurts you, and your response is to, you know, shout at them, or, you know, maybe violently react to them by striking them, whatever it is, you obviously, whether you can remember it or not, somewhere in your growth, right, from being a baby, childhood, there's something that you saw, and to you, it displayed, okay, this is how you resolve something when you feel like this, or you are made to feel like this, right? And so that becomes your right turn, right? That's what you're familiar with, and that's what you know, so therefore it is your right turn. And as you grow throughout life, obviously you're interacting with different people, you're growing, you're learning more about yourself as well. And perhaps in a relationship, someone points that out to you. In a friendship, you know, a friend that you have point that out to you, that that's problematic behavior, right? And therefore, you now need to learn, you know, to take a left, you know, or you need to basically learn a new behavior, new unfamiliar territory you need to step into, because this familiar is not working. It's not working for you. It's not working for those around you. You know, it's bringing harm. So you now need to learn this new behavior. So that's where this whole terminology of, you know, taking a left is coming from, and it's really about a lot of things that we just accept. And I've even heard this sometimes, like, this is just how I am. This is just who I am. You know, take it or leave it. And although they may sound very justified, but it's also self-righteous, because we are still responsible for our behavior, for how we respond to things, right? And we can address things about ourselves, right, that, you know, aren't, you know, welcoming, or aren't, especially if you're in a friend, like a relationship setting, or, you know, you're a parent, or whatever it is, especially when that is not boding well with the other person. It can actually show up different. And it's about, you know, where do I start to learn then that different behavior that I need to start practicing, so I can show up different. And I just use that question or the example of, you know, male and a female in a relationship, and, you know, something is said, you know, the male's response because of what was said is one of anger, and anger that leads to a violent reaction. And actually understanding that that person needs to, you know, have that reflection moment of understanding, why do they react that way, because that is not normal, right? In their mind it might be like, this is what naturally happens. No, there is actually self-awareness that you can practice, and actually pay attention to why you're acting that way. And I think the key thing is that for us to first know that we respond and behave out of what's familiar. And once we learn a new familiar, is then, you know, how we adopt new behaviors, right? So yeah.
You know, when you're talking, there's another trigger that came to mind. So, boy child, you are raised to take care of. So, when you have a father at home and he's going away, and he goes, take care of your sisters, take care of your mother, you get into when you start having money, you taking it back to the family, you have certain things, certain expectations that are placed upon you. And as you grow older, you get into a relationship. Um, you as because you've conditioned that way, you then come back and you want to care of the woman that you've chosen to love. You then want to marry her, you becomes your wife, your mind is saying, take care of your wife. And there's that expectation to take care of them all. Now, when things start not happening, automatically have that trigger within yourself. You need to be the provider. As I can sit back and do, so you must get up, you must find something, and you don't know how to. You train, or you're fired, or your company is down, or for whatever reason, you cannot have employment source of income. Again, that triggers a certain thought in you. How am I going to provide? Again, the situation becomes a trigger to something. I believe that most men have sort of faltered in that he absorbs the situation, and in itself it's out of something that is 10 times what it actually is. And some would have even go to the extent of saying, if I take care of my own family, then no one else. And that's probably see who now take extreme measures of in the whole family, including themselves. They feel I can't take care of them, so I'm not man enough. But also, if I can't them, I don't want the minds for somebody else to take care of them. Expectation is as a man, take care of my own. You know, it becomes that sort of thing, and I'm always right to learn to turn becomes you don't know how to come to your woman and say, hey babes, probably I lost my or got fired today. I don't have a plan. Of us would do that. You know, not us can come open when I've also learned this first for men to talk when they go through situations. All good and well. I hit a snag in my life and self reason things inside of me in my to no, but this, I can't do this. And I wanted to take myself out of situations, out of a lot of commitments that I had made. And I most men go through, or most of us try and figure out we don't want to be we don't want to go to one and be convenience. It's like this, can you or it becomes so hard and so challenging to do. And I've seen it since then. I've learned that when you're going through challenges, yes, to your case, but don't stay too long. But your case will that you won't be.
Right. So I think the one thing that you touched on or started with around you grow up, in a certain context, and and it's a context of you must provide, you take care of others. The other sort of burden that that person or that type person assumes upon themselves is always having to be the strong one, right? And this is often a missed part because this makes it like later on in life, you actually develop this familiarity, again, what's familiar, of just need to be the strong one, right? Even when you're not feeling strong, you cannot allow yourself, you cannot afford to be, vulnerable, or, be defeated or be empty or be like tired, because you always have to be the strong one, right?
Yeah.
So that's sort of the other layer of that type of persona. And why that is such a troublesome for you is because it makes it very hard for you to deal with yourself, because you can never be true to yourself, right? Because the moment that you are true to yourself and you have to admit that you are empty on something, or like something is really weighing on you, and you don't have the strength. For you, it's almost like you're going against what you're supposed to be, which is this strong person. And
Yeah.
this becomes a problem even in relationships, right? Because
Yes.
the thing about being the strong person, you're also the person that almost never or cannot or finds it hard to ask for help, because you have to be the strong one, right? And these things sort of merge into this thing where, I mean, most of the time you do great, you can figure things out, and you held everyone together, and you're there for everyone. But then what happens is, when you are empty, right, you are forcing yourself and stretching yourself to these things, and these things build up into different sort of even health problems, right? So the thing about expectation is that, yes, sometimes I always say that if disappointments are born out of expectations, right? And sometimes we ourselves have those unspoken expectations of ourselves. And I'd say that's a good point to start to check, And then in your relationships, in your friendships, um, to sit down, and be able to have a conversation of like, generally, in a relationship, this is what I'm expecting. We map those down, right? I think for me, that was one of the best and fruitful exercises my wife and I did in our premarital, where we literally listed a bunch of expectations, and
Okay.
we each had an opportunity to be able to comment on that. And it was real. Like, there were some things that I looked at and I said, this, we can forget about it. If it's that important to you, then maybe we should do a U-turn here. And I think that was a very healthy way of setting our foundation, and also testing our relationship, because we could either be immature in that, me responding and saying, this one you can forget, and there could be immature where, no, but you're supposed to, right? And not have an understanding and appreciation of my honesty, of I know myself and I know how I show up for things, and this is something that for me I know I will struggle to live up to, and therefore instead of lie to you because I want us to just do this, I'll be upfront. And so I found that it brought sort of raw honesty, but also it just pushed us into this maturity where you could just very sober minded like look at this thing that we were about to step into, very objectively, and not the all the things that hang around it, the romantic side, and but really objectively be able to say, okay, cool, this is what I'm signing up for, this is what I know this person said that they will do their best or they will do, and this is what they are saying that they won't do. And also, this person knows what I want out of this, and the other person also knows what they want out of something. I think that for me was probably one of the best exercises I've done in my life, because it then redefined how I want to do even work environment. Whether it is people that I work with, whether it is team members that are reporting to me, whether it is line managers I'm reporting to, is to like, before we talk anything, let's just align expectations, because
Yeah.
expectations have a way of surfacing in different ways. Someone may be walking around upset or disappointed in you, and you're not even aware of that.
right? But when you actually, do post-mortem as to how you got there, you then realize, here were some uncommunicated expectations. And I think what once you can align on expectations, right? What it does is it helps you really become a partnership, become a team, right? So if it's business partners, if it's a relationship, if it's marriage, whatever it is, because the thing is you align, and there's a better sync of, okay, I know, this person, my partner, this is what they expect of me, and this is what I've given my word on I will do. And then there's this that, that they wanted, but for me, I said it would be a challenge. So we're more in sync because now we know, okay, these are the expectations going into something. And I once read, or we actually read a note by a gentleman that posted in this group who had undergone a divorce and was sharing his story of co-parenting and actually getting along very well with his ex-wife's partner. And he was reflecting and was saying that when he looks at what went wrong with them and why, it led to their divorce, nothing else than what people typically assumed, but unmet expectations. And for me, for us, that really stuck to be like, I think that's it, right? I mean, it can develop into different other things, which leads people to to a breakup or divorce. But it gave me a very sobering sort of moment to be like, okay, actually, that is because if you think about it, whatever is sort of the symptomatic thing that we deal. So, these two divorced and he had an affair at the office or whatever. But if you trace back, to what led to those steps, to where that is what happens, you'll find probably in most cases there was an expectation, it wasn't being met. So then, because we're in our true nature as humans, we are survivalists, then it was okay, cool. Where do I then, get this need or expectation that I have? And I think that's a very important thing to just sort of always have as, the foundation of what you align on. What are each other's expectations?
Yeah, just like it's very interesting that you were doing your pre and expect out. There was that one where you said this one known that was a pivotal moment. The reason being, it seems that us are desperate. We have, and if you think about it, by the time you get to counseling, you've already paid lobola most of the time. You've proposed certain things in place. Now you're thinking, if I say no, sorry, says no, and then we try to split, they're expecting us to get married. What is going to so we are afraid to just be true to ourselves and just own up. Expectations are coming. Some high. Yes, this one, but I believe there's nothing or as relationship as uncommunicated expectation, because those a lot of resentment.
Yeah. I mean, and it cuts into everything. It cuts into our daily lives. It cuts into aspirations. One of the things that you had mentioned earlier is about a man, and when his ability to provide is sort of pulled from him, right? And I think in our second episode we had spoken about the different models, that you can, different models or templates to a relationship or marriage, right? And I mean, even something as simple as that, to agree that our, partnership or relationship will be, this one where we both work, and we're both contributing, you know, to the economic sort of, part of our relationship and our family. But the basis of that is that we are equals. So whether it is that one or whether it's the one where the one works and is the provider and the other one is a stay-at-home and manages the household, and around that, we are equals. And then there are these different roles we've agreed on, right? And the one that provides can be a female, can be a male, right? And I think even something as simple as just aligning on what approach are we going for is what, a lot of people don't do, or don't allow themselves the opportunity to actually sit and agree on that this is how we will do it. And I think one of the things I had spoken about previously was around, just the centrality of being able to provide for a man, and just how it's a natural sort of instinct to males to provide, right? And when that is tainted or sort of, rocked, it can sort of really make that his worth is nothing. And one of the sentiments I had shared was, it's very important for you as a man to understand your relationship with yourself and know that your value is not defined or solely sits in your ability to provide. And it speaks to that piece that we spoke of on, getting to know self, and in getting to know self, loving that person, right? Because you can only truly love another person if you love yourself. And I think that's another problem that we have. And another sort of problem that we have, and a driver of gender-based violence, is because love and how it's understood, how it's defined, is very problematic. And oftentimes there isn't that work that individuals have done to love themselves. Because if you love yourself and you're saying to another person you love them, how then does it translate to you beating that person up, even to the point where they are murdered? So there's that. For me, that's a very key thing in just what we define as love, what we understand love to be. I obviously am not professing to be the person who has the perfect definition, but I certainly know certain things and behaviors where it is not that. And I think that it's that first step of really getting to know yourself. Because if you know yourself, it's much easier to tell another person that this is who you are, this is how you act to certain things, and that helps them understand you, right? When you know yourself, it's all much easier to love yourself, because you know all your good parts and your bad parts, right? And then when you're able to do that, you can then love another person, because they're going to come with their good parts, they're going to come with their bad parts. And what love really does, teaches you empathy. For me, in my journey, it has really taught me how to be compassionate, or how to show empathy. Because I know I have some days that are not my great days. I know there are parts of me that are not that great. And so when I then look at someone and I say I love them, or I express my love towards them, I understand that it is contained in that it is them and all they being, that I'm really sort of giving that expression to. And I think that there's just a lack of appreciation for that, that just first step of, and that's why in my previous point I mentioned about this whole having me to be the strong person. And for me, this is a very sentimental one, because so many people around me that I know that are in that profile of always having to be the strong one, and not really pausing to assess just how toxic that is actually, because you rob yourself of actually acknowledging when you are not well, when you are not feeling great. But because you always have to be the strong one, you're always forcing this thing to always be together, to always be good, and to always be the one that shows up. And I think it's very important to be, as much as in loving others, to love ourselves. And part of that is to be compassionate towards ourselves, right? And that does mean, really understanding when you're not good and having that, compassion for yourself. Really understanding when something is weighing heavy on you, or you're not mentally feeling great, or if so I think that's really where we need to sort of start addressing some of the issues, is to be honest and true to ourselves first. And again, that's another thing, same as loving yourself. If we have a problem with being honest and true to ourselves, we then unable to be fully true and honest with anyone else around us, let alone the ones that we love and our partners.
Yeah, I think one thing that we truly underestimate about ourselves is self-love. Working on the self, making sure that I'm able to forgive myself when I've done wrong. And I really do that. I account to my own mistakes, even when I have to repent of the things that I've done wrong. I need to quickly do that with my, before I can even go out and apologize and say to another person, I'm sorry, I repent of things, next time I'll do better. Self-forgiveness is such an underrated process that we rarely do it. And especially as men, we would rather beat ourselves up about it, or we would rather deny that we are in that phase or that we have done wrong. If we do admit wrong, we would most likely do it to a best friend and say, hey, Mvetu, there I messed up. And if you have a really good friend who is fair and honest to say, yes, my friend, you went wrong there, but do not stay in self-condemnation. Because self-condemnation is another aspect that drives us even further down the pit. So once we are able to learn to balance those things, self-condemnation, allow ourselves to forgive ourselves, and then learn to love ourselves more and more, to the point where we would want the best for ourselves, that I wouldn't want to live in a particular place because I've said to do certain things because I respect myself so much, and then eventually translating to so much self-love, self-respect, self-forgiveness, wholeness, basically, that I'm able to share that self-love, to share all of that with another person, and see that person as an extension of myself. If I can see my wife as an extension of myself, I wouldn't beat myself up to a pulp. So why would I do that to her? I would want to dress myself up to the nines. Why should I pretend when she is dressed up to the nines? It's all that I am seeing an extension of her. It's like I've always lived a life where I didn't see who I was until I met the woman I loved. Then in love, I saw a reflection of a reflection of who I could be. Because I've seen that, I'm able to communicate the expectations I have with myself to her. I expect myself to be a good man to you, my wife, and this is how we can measure how I'm being a good man to you. Self-love, self-forgiveness are very crucial, and they're very important in for us men and taking us forward.
No, you're right. It's very important because I think I don't know if it was Yeah, it was part of last week's conversation. We were talking about children and how they learn. You know,
Yes.
the children really learn by what they see more than what you tell them. So, and it's the same thing in us, especially as men, right? Because we just embody sort of that essence of what we do. You know, there's a following to it. You know, whether we like it or not. And when we self practice, um, things like forgiving ourselves, and being compassionate towards ourselves, whether we're looking or not, whether we're paying attention or not, our partners, children, observe that, and that's the behavior they learn, right? And oftentimes it is their behavior before you have to teach them and really get them to adopt that behavior, because they already see it in you, right? So there's a lot of the things when impact is far beyond than just I'm choosing to take a left turn instead of the right turn that I've always taken in life. But there's also this cascade effect by those around us, and especially children, right? Whether your children, whether it's niece and nephew, but children, because all they are doing is they're going through life big, bold-eyed, and they're just looking at these adults, and then they're just absorbing, right, those behaviors. And and I think so. There's just such a richness in when men obviously are adopting and are paying attention, are taking better care of themselves. There is sort of these introspections that we do because the cascade is that far-reaching. So I think that's just a very important one. Very important one for us to always understand.
And then I just want to talk about something. And I'm going to use this example that you gave earlier, a personal example that you gave earlier about your premarital and the expectations that you communicated. Fast forward 5 years down the line, married, and now the